Welcome, everyone. I'm Jenny McKellar. I'm the program director here at Change Chemistry, and I want to thank you for joining us for today's webinar on the implementation of the Safe and Sustainable by Design framework. As the title indicates, today we'll focus on practical tools for industrial adoption of the innovation framework. Here at Change Chemistry, we find these types of collaborative and practical discussions invaluable. If you would like to learn more about Change Chemistry and hear more discussions like this, please join us for our upcoming Innovators Roundtable taking place November 14th to 16th in St. Louis, Missouri. We also have virtual tickets available. I'll drop the link in the chat where you can find more information about the event, including the agenda and how to register. For today's topic, we have an amazing lineup of experts, including Emma Stromberg from the IBL Swedish Environmental Research Institute, who will introduce the Safe and Sustainable by Design Innovation Framework. We'll then hear from Anne-Chloe Devick, who is representing CEFIC as well as SSchem, to talk about challenges and opportunities for the implementation of the Safe and Sustainable by Design Framework from an industrial perspective. We'll then hear from Hanna Holmqvist from the IBL Swedish Environmental Research Institute to talk about the Mistra Safe Chem Toolbox. For now, I'm going to turn it over to Sarah Anderson, who's representing the IBL Swedish Environmental Research Institute, as well as the SSchem Sweden program, and Peter Neuenhausen, who is the chair of our Change Chemistry Board of Directors. Thanks, Peter.
Thanks, Jenny. And as you can see, we have a number of experts indeed with very impressive job titles, and we're very grateful to have you. Big group. Thanks everyone for joining for this webinar. For those of you who are maybe not as familiar with Change Chemistry, formerly GC3, let me say a few words about who we are and what we're trying to do. So first of all, the vision is to change chemistry, and you could have guessed that perhaps from the organization's title, much clearer than what we used to be in green chemistry. And we envision a global economy where all chemicals, materials, and products are safe and sustainable, from creation all the way through to disposal and reuse. Unfortunately, that's not yet the case. So an organization like ourselves is extremely beneficial. We have a lot of work to do, and one of the ways by which we do that is by organizing webinars and meetings such as this one, and such as Jenny has indicated is upcoming. We pursue our vision by fostering collaboration along the value chain. Changing chemistry is not something that is only the job of chemical industry. There are customers, there are downstream customers that build our value chains. So it's very important to collaborate. We cultivate first movers. We convene industry decision makers to secure meaningful commitments, and we advocate for a supportive policy environment. We have a broad group of members already. If you change to the next slide, which you can see, there we go. Actually quite unique community, and we have members across the value chain. So you can see the Dows and the BASFs that you would expect, of course, in a changing chemistry, in a greening chemistry organization. But we also have the downstream, the companies that make products that go directly to consumers, like Primark and Beiersdorf, and many more. This is just a selection. Next slide. And our goal is to accelerate the growth, the penetration of sustainable chemicals. So this is happening. We should be fair. There are more and more safe and sustainable chemicals getting into the supply chain, but the trend is slow, and we still have a lot of chemicals of concern. So the goal that we share within Change Chemistry is to speed that up and to make sure that by 2050, the majority of chemicals that are being produced and are being used are of a safe and sustainable nature. Go to the next slide. And in that, it's of course a pleasure for us to host a webinar on safe and sustainable by design. This is a very important framework as part of the European Green Deal. And I'd like to hand over to Sarah Anderson to kick this off. Sarah.
Thank you, Peter, and thank you for giving us the opportunity to organize this webinar together. I'm working at IVL, the Swedish Environmental Research Institute, and here I'm representing SSchem Sweden, which is a network for a European technology platform. So SSchem Sweden is operated by IVL in cooperation with ICHEM, the Swedish Federation of Chemical Plastics Refinery and Life Science Industry. The next slide, please. And SSchem Sweden is collaborating with 17 other national technology platforms, and we are trying to bring together the Swedish industry and researchers to collaborate for join forces together with SSchem Europe for a sustainable future. And for SSchem Sweden, we have focused on 4 areas, which is circular chemistry, plastics, infrastructure, and safe and sustainable by design, which is the topic of today. Next slide, please. So just very brief, the overall goals for SSchem Sweden is to strengthen the competitiveness of the Swedish chemical industry through development of sustainable and innovative materials and chemicals, and strengthen the cooperation with members within the SSchem Europe network, and contribute as a partner in the IRIS project, which you will hear more about very soon, and also build up a European platform and community for safe and sustainable by design. So thank you very much for giving us the opportunity to host this webinar, and we'll hand over to the next speaker, who is Emma Strömberg from IVL, the Swedish Environmental Research Institute, and you will present about the project that you're the coordinator of, the IRIS project. Please, Emma.
Thank you, Sarah. Yes, I would like to first of all thank you for organizing this webinar together with us. And today I will briefly introduce the concept of safe, sustainable by design and the framework that has been recommended by the European Commission on SSbD. Next slide, please. So the chemical production has been determined as one of the most polluting and energy resource intensive sectors. And here you can see several of the pollutants, for example, emissions of hazardous substances and greenhouse gases, and of course, use of non-renewable resources such as fossil resources. But it can also be a building block for low carbon, zero pollution, energy and resource efficient technologies, and have to assure to support the overall green transition of the EU. Therefore, Chemical Strategy for Sustainability was launched in October 2020, which is a major initiative towards safer production and use of chemicals, and here including both human health and the ecosystems. And within the Chemical Strategy for Sustainability is emphasized that chemicals are expected to contribute to the green and sustainable transition in Europe and to the fulfillment of the SSDGs. Next slide, please. So within the Chemical Strategy for Sustainability, it is emphasized that the focus must be both on protection of health and the environment through prevention of pollution, and the promotion of safe and sustainable innovation for chemicals, materials, and processes throughout the whole life cycle of the product. And within the Chemical Strategy for Sustainability, a key concept was introduced, safe and sustainable by design, which is a concept developed to integrate safety and sustainability in the early stages of innovation and product development. It also aims to encourage innovation to replace hazardous substances in products and processes and develop new chemicals and materials, optimizing also redesign production processes for improved safety and sustainability. Next slide, please. So the working description today comes from the Chemical Strategy for Sustainability. Safe and sustainable by design can be defined as a pre-market approach to chemicals that focuses on providing a function or service while avoiding volumes and chemical properties that may be harmful to human health or the environment, and in particular groups of chemicals likely to be ecotoxic, persistent, bioaccumulative, or mobile. And that overall sustainability should be ensured by minimizing the environmental footprint of chemicals, in particular on climate change, resource use, ecosystems, biodiversity, and all the time from a life cycle perspective. So that is key within safe and sustainable by design, that the whole life cycle is considered. Next slide, please. As Peter already mentioned, the background for the concept is different concepts, different initiatives. For example, of course, green chemistry, sustainable chemistry. It's part of the European Green Deal, considering also lessons learned from safe by design approach, life cycle assessment, risk assessments, and of course, it's also taking into account the global challenges that we have, the Sustainable Development Goals, but also the planetary boundaries. And all of this combined was collected and developed as the SSbD framework by Joint Research Center, JRC, and 2 reports were published last year. Next slide, please. So this is, the framework is built on a hierarchical principle, putting safety first. And a chemical could be considered SSbD when its inherent properties and features all along the value chain for its production and consumption are safe. The risks associated to chemical exposure are to be minimal. The chemical and its production processes remain within ecological boundaries and are significantly better than the alternatives that are there today. And the chemical and its production processes avoid generating threats to socioeconomic system. So here we're looking at, of course, the aim is a toxic-free environment, and all of the chemicals and materials placed on the market should be safe and produced in a safe way, and of course, should be safe during the use phase. We have to ensure that the final products do not contain any harmful substances, and of course, substitution of substances of concern are in focus here. And more importantly, we're looking at the design phase. So all of the materials and processes and products and chemicals need to be designed with safety consideration from the beginning. Looking at sustainability dimension, circularity, and of course, life cycle perspective are key. Next slide, please. So this is a stepwise approach for the assessment within the framework, divided in 3 different dimensions: safety, environmental dimension, and social economic dimension. And you can see that the 3 first steps are within the safety dimension, the addressing hazard assessment of chemical or material, health and safety aspects during production, and then health and environmental aspects during the application phase. Step 4 is focusing on environmental sustainability assessment, and step 5 on social economic sustainability assessment. Step 5 is still under development. Next slide, please. I would also like to briefly introduce the project that Sarah mentioned, IRIS. It stands for International Ecosystem for Accelerating Transition to Safe, Sustainable by Design Material Products and Processes. This is a EU-funded project that we are coordinating. Next slide, please. And within the project, one of the main goals is to develop a global SSbD network where we're trying to reach out to all of the stakeholders that can be interested in both implementing SSbD framework or need expertise and guidance to start working with SSbD within their businesses. We also strongly supporting SSbD implementation directly in industry along all, the whole value chain, providing development of different roadmaps for different value chains. And one of the key aspects for the project is also to share knowledge and to share experience on implementation of SSbD and to help companies and researchers to implement SSbD within their R&D. Next, please.
Yeah, 1.5 minutes.
Thank you. So we are 20 partners that you can see here that are collaborating. We have industry, different associations, research institutes, and of course, academia on board, and several SASCEM partners as well. Next, please. And please get in touch with us, visit our webpage or LinkedIn to keep up with the news from the project, and also please register to the network and make us stronger. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Emma. And very sharp on time, which is wonderful, because then we can move to our next speaker, Anna Chloe.
Yes,
Floor is
thank
yours.
you. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. So I'm going to deep dive a little bit in the IRIS project that Emma just presented. And the industrial part, I think we've built up this EU-funded project to have a very strong industry pillar. And for this, next please. For this, we have organized ourselves as CEFIC as the the chemical industry council, European Council, coordinating 7 different value chains. It's interesting the point which was made when we talk about one value chain, but obviously we have to work along different sectors which have their own life cycle assessments, SSbD concept development, and issues. They can have different circularity issues. If I take an example between, for example, fragrances, which go into personal care, cosmetics, won't have at all the same circularity issues. They will deal with biodegradability as, for example, energy or automotive value chains. So we have like representatives. So they were like chosen because they have a good connection within the whole life cycle of all different products within each value chain. And then very importantly also, we are supported by SUSCHEM, the technology platform. As you know, it's a public-private platform. So we are working all together between academy, RTOs and industry, and not only on a European level, but also at national level. We have like 17 platforms, and this is extremely important for the implementation of SSbD, because we're talking about SMEs. I will mention that later. As you know, the key actors here for implementing safe and sustainable by design chemicals or materials are at the end of the day SMEs. Next, please. So this is just to show you the activities that we have within the project. So if you join the website, you join the community, you will get to know much more, of course. So first of all, we are analyzing each value chain, like what stakeholders we're talking about and what are the challenges related to safe and sustainable by design. We also have to work on criteria because the Commission until now has proposed a framework, but then what are the criteria that are going to be chosen at the end? And also we are looking at specificities of each value chain, but also what are the common points. So we establish a dialogue between the different value chains, and I think that's what is the big interest of this project. We have been working in the last year, we are a bit more than 1 year running that project. So the challenges, we have been focusing on what are the challenges. I will show you after a table. And then engagement, of course, because we want to build up a community, and we want to also internationalize, not only go work within our current ecosystem, which is like, for example, SUSCHEM and also the materials community, nano safety community in Europe. We really want to go much beyond. And also we are collaborating with the Commission, the GRC, on case studies for implementation of the SSbD framework. Next, please. So here is just to show you that we are really engaging. We talk about IRIS in each value chain precisely. All our representatives are trying to outreach as much as possible downstream within each value chain, so that you can, of course, have access in the website. Next, please. So here it's a work we have done on skills and knowledge, which is a very strong pillar of IRIS project, because we all know that safety and sustainability, or safe and sustainable, or the holistic approach of safety and sustainability still is, we have a long way to go on the skills development, both on the education, on the academy side and on the industry side. Just so that you know, so we have content that you will be able to see also on the website. So the interviews that went that we had within the different value chains, said there is a very clear distinction between safety and sustainability. So these are really completely separate skills, and that's what maybe what we will have to work on. And also the focus on safety is very, very different between the different value chains and production stages. Sustainability, it's a bit more recent concept, but there is, according to a lot of stakeholders, lack of regulation. Market demand is the major driver of sustainability efforts, market demand. So really is the customers always the same from the industry perspective. The market is actually the driver for safe and sustainable by design products. Next, please. So this is a table which I'm not going to detail here, but this is just to show you the complexity. It's like just the summary on one slide, but you have all the different value chains here: packaging, textiles, construction, automotive, energy, fragrances, and electronics. And what we are doing is we're working on all the aspects of safe and sustainable by design. So we work on design principles, how the innovation processes are done and what are the procedures, then the safety by design, then also the safety aspects, occupational health, safety and environmental risks during production stages, and then all the LCA aspects, which include, very importantly, the circularity. And a lot of stakeholders have said, the circularity is one of the main issues for most of the value chains, actually. Social and economic assessment, even if, as Emma mentioned, is not, we don't have any framework proposed by the Commission yet, but we have anticipated and we are working on it already. And then we also are debating about the trade-offs. Again, if we have not established criteria, it's difficult to talk about trade-offs, but okay, we have opened the debate and the dialogue. Next, please. So the main results that we had, so you know that we are delivering reports to the Commission. So this will be available on like preliminary report form on the website. In a few months' time, you will be able to have access. But mainly, so a big outcome is the source, the value chain source feedstock outside Europe. That has been mentioned many times, and that affecting LCA outcomes. So it's okay, and that the issue, the industry issue, is that these materials are cheaper but not SSbD compliant. Another very strong statement is the SMEs. They are interested. We have quite a lot of SMEs actually joining the community, but they are not. They consider the implementation of SSbD process, but it's just a burden that they are seeing, and they're not seeing exactly how this is going to be implementable with the very small resources that they have. Then we have the regulatory aspects, the guidelines, tools, and processes. I mean, it's still a lot has to be developed, standardized. It has to be simplified also. This is to encourage SME adoption. Substitution, it's a lot also on the table, of course, because you know that there are many substances which need to be substituted. And the remark from many stakeholders has been the potential loss of efficiency, functionality, and commerciality. Like, this is not going to sell. Regulation is both a barrier and a driver for change. So that's the interesting aspect to debate on. And then consumer power, at the end of the day, will be the driver, how they can be an ally to implement safe and sustainable by design products. Next, please. So this is just to show you what we are doing and what will we be doing in the next months. So we want to give solutions for uptake, basically how we can implement SSbD in a simplified manner, right? Compared to the, this framework that we have been proposed by the Commission. So we are working on roadmaps. What our roadmaps are, what are the challenges, but what are the solutions? We are also working on value chain hubs, how we can drive this SSbD implementation within each value chain. We also have a very important mission, which is the collaboration with this new initiative, potential future partnership AMI 2030, which is Advanced Materials Initiative. Then I would say how to bring SSbD to a practical design innovation process environment in an SME. This is our big mission in the next 2 years. And for that, we are counting a lot on our national platforms, because at national level, we have much better access to SMEs. So we want to build an SMEs network. Next, please. So what we are planning is that, updating our analysis of value chains as stakeholders, challenges, and initiatives. Then we have a deliverable on roadmaps for each value chain in January 24. Then we are going to organize a dialogue between the different value chains, but this will be a closed debate. This is for internal purposes, but that will lead to better efficiency for the project. And then how we're going to implement SSbD in the value chains and the SMEs. Working on dissemination, how we can get to be known further. And towards 24, 25, the project is due to finish in 25, is the objective of building a permanent structure. Skills need training services, so we are thinking of enabling training services and having those hubs I was mentioning, and have co-creation services, and also have a pool of experts which can assist specifically the SMEs within the different value chains. Next, please.
1 more minute. And
yes. So just the conclusion. We want to have SSbD more understood because, yeah, we're still, it's a journey, right? Substitutions of chemicals of concern. The chemical industry is definitely well aware, but as I said, within all value chains, the larger companies have more resources, so it's easier. Then what else? Potential confidentiality issues. There we are very much linked with the digital passport initiative. So how we are going to protect the information given on safety all along the value chains. Then we also have this all these initiatives on sustainable chemistry, like change chemistry, as we are today. We have also the OECD initiative, which is the Safe and Sustainable Innovation Action. We have the ISC3 organization from Germany, which is a global sustainable chemistry organization. DGRTD also has built up a community. And then we have also the UNEP, which is the chemicals management, and which are evolving also towards some sort of SSbD framework. But to conclude, I would say that despite all these challenges, we have a very highly motivated industry team in IRIS, and we have delivered already a lot of content, and hopefully soon you will be able to see all this in details. And I think that's on my presentation. Thank you.
thank you. Thank you, Anne-Chloé. And I also would like to remind you, we have some questions in the chat, but please post your questions in the chat and we will bring them up towards the end in the discussion. Now I'd like to introduce Hanna Holmqvist. You're also working at IVL, the Swedish Environmental Research Institute, but you're also leading a big program called Mistra SafeChem, where you developed a toolbox. So please, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Sarah, and thank you all for inviting me here. Yes, I'm the program coordinator of Mistra SafeChem, and I will give you a brief introduction to our toolbox that we create for a safe, sustainable and green chemical industry. So it's nicely aligned to this SSbD theme that we have here today. I will first give you a bit of a background on the program so you understand where I'm coming from. Next slide, please. So the Mistra SafeChem program has a vision, and that is to enable and promote the expansion of a safe, sustainable and green chemical industry. It is a Swedish research project, so we're working with a strong focus on Sweden, but of course, as value chains are interlinked and many actors are global actors, we don't limit ourselves to Sweden as a field. Next slide, please. So it's a research program on green chemistry, and we are transdisciplinary. So we have chemists, toxicologists, and life cycle assessment experts. So I myself come from this LCA field as well as the toxicity field. And there are many of us who come from several fields liking to work together. And we find this collaboration a way to come further towards a safe and sustainable chemical industry. And we develop new sustainable synthesis processes, and we create this toolbox to help predict and avoid risks already in the design phase. So also in this program, we have this strong focus on the design phase, and hence in a stage in the development where we don't know so much about a chemical or a new process, and I will come back to that. Next slide, please. So it's 100 million Swedish crown over a 4-year kind of project, so that's 10 million euros roughly, funded by Mistra, and we run from 2020 to 2024, and we are intending or hoping for a prolongation all until 2028, basically. We have a website, so I encourage you to come and visit that. And on this website, we have deliverables from our 6 academic partners, as well as 13 companies who are partnering in the program. And I should say that Mistra is the Swedish Foundation for Strategic Environmental Research. Next slide, please. So we have put together this simple framework to illustrate our research as a concept for green chemistry in Sweden. So we work on research on how to use renewable carbon feedstock and how to design for safety, sustainability, and recycling for efficient and safe synthesis, and with that produce materials and chemical building blocks all the way through to industrial and consumer products. And we also have this circular thinking, so we are doing studies on reuse and recycling. And then the toolbox that I was talking about, it's partly made out of these new type of processes or synthesis pathways that we develop, but it's also on life cycle management, for example, life cycle assessment, and also different testing and screening tools. Next slide, please. And you can click to the square. Yeah, thank you. So we are looking at innovative industrial production processes where we have a strong focus on catalysis, both metal and enzyme catalysis, because these are important reactions in the chemical industry. And we also, as I said, look at non-fossil resources as starting materials. But today I will focus more on these 2 next boxes to the right. So we are developing tools for hazard and risk screening for early warning and proactivity, where we have a stepwise toolbox with in silico tools that is computerized digital predictions, and then in vitro tools, which is a cell-based test, and you will see that we also have some invertebrates in there, and then analytical chemistry tools, and then life cycle assessment or life cycle management tools, where we have a strong focus on what we'd like to call a chemical footprint to follow the hazardous properties and potential risks for exposure along a full value chain. Next slide, please. So very briefly, I'll see where I'm at the time. Yeah, that's good. This will be very overarching, but I encourage you to go and visit our website, because this toolbox, it's already there in a part, because we have a lot of deliverables and publications on different tools up on the web already. But the whole toolbox summarized will become a part of the web within short, and then you can click yourself through and read more on the different tools. But as I said, we have in silico models, and we cover a wide range of endpoints. So we have a number of endocrine disruptors, mutagenicity, reproductive toxicity, carcinogenicity, readily biodegradation, bioconcentration factors in fish, and persistence. And we will probably add additional endpoints to this, because we work in case studies, and when we identify a need for additional endpoints, we see to the possibility to develop models for that. These models are, some of them are AI-based, some of them are more traditional machine learning-based models. And for several of the endpoints, we have several models to produce result on the same endpoint, giving us this more, a battery of models, if you like, for a certain endpoint or effect that you want to study. And then on the in vitro side, we have hazard tests on endocrine disruptors again, mutagenicity, skin erythrization, skin sensitization, phototoxicity, genotoxicity, and ecotoxicity. So what you see on the image there is a Daphnia, and it's a new test developed for high throughput screening to see early effects that you cannot capture in the traditional acute test. And they are developing different coloring schemes to find different effects in those Daphnias. So that's actually an in vivo test. The Daphnias are alive in the tests. but it's herein classified as an in vitro test. And then analytical chemistry, where we work with both target screening, where you can pinpoint specific substances and get quantified measurements on levels of these in different materials or matrices, but also non-target screening, where you can see, you know, when you don't know exactly what's in a sample, and you can look whatever chemicals are in there using GCMS and LCMS methods. So we study textiles, pollution in water, and biodegradation. Next slide, please. But we're not staying only on the early warning and hazard risk in single places. We also produce this life cycle-based toolbox. And we apply that for chemical alternatives assessment, but also for these chemical footprints that I mentioned, that is the toxicity and ecotoxicity indicators in an LCA. And then, of course, it can be implemented in a full-blown LCA where you consider not only the toxicity aspects, but also other sustainability impact metrics, such as acidification or eutrophication. And our focus is on the ecotoxicity and toxicity impact assessments, and we do that with two tools mainly: the UseTox tool, available on the web, and the ProScale tool, also available on the web. So they have a somewhat different direction and scope, but they both deal with toxicity and ecotoxicity with a life cycle perspective. And next click, please. And then we are based on experiences in several case studies that we work on, we develop these further. And we also write and will make accessible a practical guide for LCA practitioner to be able to include these indicators in their LCA. And the illustration here on the life cycle is just a reminder that we then get the value chain. So it's not just chemical potential impact or risks, if you like, in a single location, but it's on all locations and all activities associated with that function that we have under study. Next slide, please. So as an example, we work in case studies, as I said, and we have one case study on hydrogenation reaction processes and novel processes for this. And in this example, we have a driver that is to move away from scarce metals. So palladium is a common catalyst in hydrogenation reactions. But what if we move to more common metals as catalysts, such as nickel or copper? Next click, please. So researchers in the program have come to a solution, and that is a reusable fast-row transition metal catalyst to provide the same hydrogenation reaction without using the scarce or noble metal, and also having the chance to reuse the catalyst in a more efficient way. And then next click, please. But then in Mr. SafeChem trying to work transdisciplinary, we then scrutinize this reaction to see, but are there any other risks? Do we potentially have trade-off? Does this new catalyst introduce, for example, toxicity? So we apply analytical chemistry to see what's in the waste streams, for example, and also we apply in silico tools to see are there any hazards associated with potential emissions from here. Next click, please. And then we use LCA and these chemical footprints to see, can it be further optimized? What if we compare this novel new process with the conventional one? How do they compare? Where do we have new hotspots in a further upscaling? Where do we have to improve it further for it to be safe and sustainable? And there I can say that in Mr. SafeChem, we're not working completely with the safe and sustainable by design framework, following it in detail as JRC has proposed it, because Mr. SafeChem as a program was put together before that framework was published. But we have all the same components. So in a phase 2 of the program, we of course intend to align with the framework as proposed by the JRC, and also to stress test our toolbox to see, where is it, how can it be even more useful? But already today we have tools for a lot of the steps in the framework, even though we are not putting it forward exactly as fitting to the framework. Next slide, please.
Anna, you have less than 1 minute.
Yeah, and next slide, and I'm finishing up there. So please go visit our website, and I acknowledge Mistra for the funding again. so far, most stuff on the website is under news, and we have a lot of nice news stories, and then under deliverables, where we already have a lot of publications. But the toolbox as such will come up on the web within short. Next slide, please. Thank you for having me here, and thank you to all my colleagues in the program. And that was it.
Thanks so much, Hanna. That's wonderful, and thanks so much also to the other speakers, Anna, Chloe, and Emma, for an introduction and elaboration on safe and sustainable by design. I have a question myself, probably to Emma and Anna, before we pick up some of the questions from the audience. And this is also an invitation. If you have any questions, please put them in the chat, and we will process them. But my question to Emma and Anna is, so we have these 5 steps for safe and sustainable by design. What kind of scores can come out? Is this like a green, orange, red, or is there a number that will be given to it, and you need to meet a certain threshold? Maybe both or one of you can elaborate on that.
Yeah, I can start. So you're completely correct. It's green, yellow, orange, red kind of scheme, and you go from very high risk to negligible risk in the scoring system, which gives you indication on if you have very high risk, then you shouldn't proceed. Let's put it that way. And Koya, do you want to?
So if let's say if I'm green, then I can tell the world I'm SSbD. But if I am yellow, what can I say to the world? I'm almost SSbD. How will that go?
Maybe I can.
Go ahead.
I think ideally, in an ideal world, I think, yes, you would have to be green, and then you would be stamped SSbD, right? And the rest, okay, maybe yellow you can accept. But I just want to stress that we are far from being there. So this is a journey we are in. Even the Commission, they have tried, they are working on those case studies this year and the next year. I mean, we have like 2 years ahead yet to develop those scores. So that's very important to know, because it's so complex that yeah, we cannot come up with some colors just like this with so many, because okay, we have the chemicals starting from a chemical, but then if we're talking about all materials and products, then it gets really complex.
Okay, thanks for that elaboration. Sarah?
Yes.
Any questions from the audience that we can put forward?
Yes. We have one question. I think it might be for Emma. How many industry partners do you have in IRIS?
So we do have 7 different value chains that contribute actively, as Anko presented. And also, of course, Safig is a partner as well. So chemical industry is also contributing.
As you mentioned, you can always connect to IRIS even though you're not a partner, right? So
yes,
there,
absolutely.
do you know how many that is in the community?
Oh, at the moment. You mean how many registered members we do have? Is that what you mean, Sarah? Yeah. I think about 600.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. And out of those 600, many industry partners.
Yes, yes.
Thank you.
We
have a question. Oh, go ahead, Peter.
Yeah, so I'm intrigued by that number of 600. That's I would say an unexpectedly high number for something that, you know, if you look at your presentations, looks like is a lot of work. There's a lot of work to do safe and sustainable by design. So what is the is there a reason? Is there a hope that perhaps this will make it easier to enter the market? Can you give some indications there?
Sorry, Peter, could you elaborate? Easier?
Yeah, so if you have 600 partners, it sounds like people are very enthusiastic to do what looks like a lot of work. So what is the incentive to get involved and to do all this SSbD work?
There are many incentives, of course, but from my perspective, and I'm academic, I'm not from industry, so Ankoya will need to
Yes, I will
fill in.
Yes.
Of course, to assure that the innovation process is clean already from the beginning, that you have safe products on the market, that we assure that it's both safe and sustainable. So it's not only safety or not only sustainability in focus within the framework. So it's a combination of both, and that you follow the whole life cycle of the product. So incentive is to have attractive chemicals and materials that will assure safety sustainability over time and can be, for example, circular even after 20, 30 years, as we see the problems today with older materials that cannot.
Okay.
Ankoya, please,
Yeah.
from the industrial point of view.
From
Yeah.
from the industrial point of view, I think that they have I think the big companies have the processes in place more or less, even if it's not done in a holistic, necessarily super holistic manner between safety and sustainability, circularity. But it will be easier to implement, I think, for the big companies. Now, for the small companies, they rely on their supplier always. So the supplier is also a small company, and that's where I think the interest is coming, because they are realizing now that they have to really be more to question a lot more their safety and sustainability of their product that they are buying, right? So I think that's where the interest is coming from. Now we have the Green Deal, we have a policy aspect. The Commission has given that is a guidance. Okay, it's not a legislation or whatever, but okay, it could turn into a standards. It could turn into something more, a bit more obligatory, even if it's not a legislation, and it might end up with a certification. The industry at large, they don't want too many, standards or too many complications. But so be it. In Europe, that's what we are working on, and the interest is extremely high. That's for sure.
So this could mean if you want to introduce a new chemical, then you need to show that you have followed the SSbD steps.
No, because I mean the new chemical, you have the REACH process, and REACH actually is also under revision. So new chemical, yes. I wouldn't say so. It's more like the further downstream, and that's precisely what we are working in IRIS, is what the chemical, what is becoming. And yeah, many actors, stakeholders have said a chemical, even if it's toxic or dangerous, if it's fully reacted, then it ends up, you don't even know about it in your final product. So why should it be cut off, so that, you have all these types of questions. So the application, what is now, I think it's taken in account by REACH, by many DGs. I mean, it's not only like DG Research, because DG Research is leading that SSbD work, but then you have the other parts of the Commission, DG Grow, DG Environment. They all want to work on the application of a chemical. At the end of the day, it's all the products which are going to end up, and it's the management of end of life also that has they have wanted to integrate in that concept. Yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
More than it
Peter?
already is in reach.
But the chemical itself, yes, it is to be evaluated for sure, but for a very defined application, which is not easy when you're a chemical producer or developer, I would say a researcher in the chemical industry. You develop this new chemical or you improve that chemical, but you don't always control all the different applications.
And Peter, we have just, I think we need a clarification. We have some questions in the chat. So we had a slide showing how many partners there are in IRIS. So the number of partners active in IRIS is 20. Those are the partners that do the work within the project. But then
Yes.
we were talking about the community, the companies that can get information, get involved in workshops and activities within the project. There was the community now with the 600. Just to be
Exactly, yeah.
clarified, it's not 600 partners in the project, it's 20.
Yes.
But
Thank
then
you, Sarah.
just a short answer, Anne, because we have a question. Which industry has the biggest desire to change towards SSbD in the future? A difficult question, I believe, but
Oof.
should you give a quick
Yes.
answer?
I would say, depending on the specific issues that each value chain can have, but there is, yes, a very high interest, for example, by textiles. The textiles industry is really committed, and especially on the circularity, on the recycling side. I would say fragrances also is extremely highly motivated for both the toxicity aspects and the biodegradability issues, and packaging. I would say packaging because also of the legislation. I mean, the fact that we have very strict legislation on plastics in plastics packaging. I mean, I say packaging value chain, we have focused on plastics until now, and we're going to work on other materials like glass, for example. But the plastics is definitely one very high on the agenda, and that everyone wants to. I would say all of them, but yeah, if you want some priorities, I would put
Okay.
that. But yeah, maybe I'm wrong.
I would say that all of them.
All of them, yeah.
Yeah. However, the difference is how far they have come already. So some are really in the
Yes.
forefront,
Mm.
and some are just starting the journey. So it's but all of them are working towards the same goal.
Yeah.
We just
Yeah, I
have
see of the 20 partners, how many companies? So we are, there are some companies participating directly, but it's really through the associations like CEFIC. But we have regular dialogue with all different companies, that's for sure. We have a very, very good dialogue on SSbD with companies, not only the chemical companies, but within the value chains also.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So just one more minute. And Peter, do you want to wrap up this in 1 minute? Or do you
No.
want to do it together?
No, absolutely. I think safe and sustainable by design is, as we have seen, is a concept that will be very useful. It is not intuitive if you don't know it. So I think webinars like this, as well as other introductions of the concept, are very much helpful. I think Anna, what you said is also important. This is something that is still under development, so it is we need to take note of it. Companies that are interested and institutions and organizations that are interested need to step up and give their input to develop something that is useful. I'd like to thank the speakers once more for bringing their insights and their knowledge to this group. I want to thank the the attendance, for signing up and listening in. It's been very good to have you, and we would look forward to have more of these webinars, and to have you also at some of the other events that we organize. And with that, I hand it to you, Sarah, and maybe even to Jen.
Thank you. Well, I can only conclude by saying this could be like a half a day webinar with on this subject, because it's very there's a lot to learn. So I hope that this was just something to get you more interested, and please get in contact if you want to know more. You can use any of the experts that have been talking here today and get more information afterwards. So thank you again for all the speakers and all of you who attended.